Welcome to another episode of Electable. I'm Deb Chubb, and this podcast is sponsored by the Indiana Women's Action Movement. Today, we're here to talk about rural Democrats. And this is really exciting because we have two members of the United Rural Democrats, which is a fairly new organization with us, Michaell, Dunham, and Andrea Engel. And I'm just really excited to hear about this organization because it has grown so much, so quickly in Indiana and around the country. So, so Michaell, I'll start with you. So tell us a little bit of background about the United Rural Democrats.
Yeah, sure. And we're really glad to be here and be on this. So United Rural Democrats we're essentially a coalition of people that are trying to raise awareness of rural issues and help rural Democrats organize to their best capacity. So we're composed mainly of younger, passionate individuals who, unfortunately, we've seen our communities be left behind, whether it be at the statewide level or at the federal level. And we're really just interested in bringing a focus back to our communities because we've seen, individuals and farms that just haven't been invested in and cities that haven't been invested in and have fallen by the wayside. And we're really looking to bring attention back both at the federal, state, and local level.
That's great. And, in the world of Democratic politics, that is always, well, at least in the last several years, been the million-dollar question. What are the issues that resonate with rural Democratic voters or even just rural voters? So you've mentioned a couple of things, farms that aren't getting attention and cities that are not getting attention. I'd always thought it was things like, hospitals that were closing in rural areas. So really the inability to access healthcare in many counties. Is that something you're hearing a lot?
Yeah, healthcare is definitely a big issue. There has not been an investment in rural healthcare. And you can see that in terms of how long it takes to get to a hospital, or the number of hospital closures has skyrocketed over the past decade. So rural healthcare, especially in dealing with addictions and overdoses in rural America, is a very big issue. And we're hoping to bring that back to the forefront of the discussion for the Democrats.
Oh, all right. That's just excellent. Yeah. And I just heard the statistic that opioid overdoses increased by 30% in the last year. Just unbelievable. I mean, it was already bad. Okay. So Audrey, so can you tell me about what inspired you to join this group and what your vision is for your participation in the group?
Yeah, so one of my friends texted me earlier in the year and told me about United Rural Democrats, and I thought it was a really cool idea. I joined it. I've been to a couple events, and it's been a really cool thing to go to. I went to the American Rescue Plan tour, and Joe Donnelly was there. He recognized my shirt that Michaell has on right now from United Rural Democrats, which was really cool to see that an elected official knew who we were and noticed us by our shirt. So I guess I'm really excited that we've had a lot more growth in the past few months and we have a new project going. And to me, that's really exciting. And I think that a lot of individual issues, especially like rural Democrats, will inspire the youth like Michaell and I, rather than just a wider sense of Democrats and getting the same people in the establishment elected.
Tell me about the structure of your organization, Audrey.
So we have a lot of young people. We use the app Discord to organize events. We have mainly our state chapters, our statewide chapters, and then for our general, we have all our projects in there, and we just like to get as many people to go to each event as we can. So we have a lot of people spread out amongst the states, like in South Bend, like us, and in other states.
And so go ahead.
We have our president, who's Joe Shepard, who's the founder. And then we have a variety of state chairs. And then under those state chairs, we have everyone in our states.
Yeah.
So she mentioned Discord is how we primarily organize. So we have in Discord, we have an Indiana section, and then we have a general section where everyone is. So we can talk with everyone, we can share ideas, and we can just talk with our states, which I think is really nice.
Yeah,
it's very accessible. Everyone is, really loves to talk, and it's great.
So, okay, of course I'm old and I'm not familiar with Discord. So it's a platform where people can just have conversations as well as plan events.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's essentially like texting back and forth, but with a lot of different sections. So,
Oh,
like we said, like there's one general chat with everyone and then statewide chat. So we have Indiana.
Mhm. And
oh,
it's super helpful, and you can have it on your computer, or on your phone, so it's really accessible for everyone.
oh, that's excellent. All right. Well, I'm going to have to check that out. So, Michaell, tell us about like how much this organization has grown since you've been involved.
So I first joined, I want to say back in around January. So I go to Purdue University, and one of my friends there messaged me and was like, "Hey, would you be interested in joining this organization?" And I think we had about 30 members at the time, and I was like, "Okay, this is kind of small," but I started working with it, and now we have close to 200 people, and those are just members that are like, consistently working with our organization. But we have a lot of more people that we reached out to and who would be willing to volunteer, if we asked them to, maybe willing to phone bank or text bank. So it's definitely grown a lot. The number of people we've reached out to has grown exponentially, and so I'm really happy with the growth of it. I think that's one of the things that I love about it, is I feel like we're actually making a change. We're growing, and that's just really cool to see.
Yeah.
And you told me earlier that the main demographic is really young people, and
Mhm.
and everything you've said so far, of course, supports that. So I guess I wonder how you reach out to young people. How, I mean, obviously you've been very successful. So what are your approaches? How do you reach out to young people, and how do you engage them?
You can go.
Okay. Well, I know from just going to the American Rescue Plan tour, I met a couple people there who were really interested in your United Rural Democrats. They thought what we were doing was really interesting. And, I mean, a lot of young people have Twitter and the platforms that we're on, and young people like to tell their friends about what they're doing, which is how I found out about it. And our Twitter has really grown, especially. So through social media and events and word of mouth, we've really spread a lot.
And you can see that in the way that the people who like are filling out the application to, maybe join or, be part of our organization. That's what they're mentioning, is they're seeing, hey, we saw you on social media. And, I wasn't like, they might say something like, I wasn't aware that there was a group that was reaching out to rural communities that was also, part of the Democrats. I wasn't aware that there was a group that was trying to focus on rural issues. And they're really excited to see that, because they
Yeah.
haven't seen that before. And so they think, I'd love to be, or at least, know more about this organization, hear a bit about it. And so that's one of the ways that we think we can spread, is people who have, not really seen a lot of effort or a lot of other organizations. And those are the people that we're trying to reach out to.
Right.
Great. And are you officially a political action committee, or are you just a coalition?
Right
Are you
now,
you're just a coalition?
right.
And that's excellent. I think that gives you a lot of freedom to do things, and and work with different groups, and that's really a good approach, I think. So we talked earlier too about other concerns that young people had in the rural areas, and tell me more about that, because I think that's a much bigger topic. Tell me what other issues are resonating with young people in rural areas.
Yeah, I think we mentioned like an infrastructure bill earlier, and I think that really resonates with a lot of the youth, because that's something that's pretty overdue. And a lot of people that I know have been kind of fed up with the establishment and the same thing happening, even though we have control over the Senate, the presidency, everything, and we're not really getting much done. So things like that have been definitely sounding like more progress, and it's definitely giving the youth hope and progress.
Does your organization have a set platform?
We do. So we have a website. It's unitedruraldemocrats.org, I believe. And if afterwards we can give you the link, so if you'd like to put it up and people can check it out.
Oh, that's great.
And our idea is that as we continue to grow, you can click on a state and you can see kind of our goals for the state. So what maybe is important here, or what's important there. Right now, that's it's a little bit on hold because we're kind of awaiting redistricting. I know we talked about this beforehand, is we want to, when we have a strategy, we also want to see what kind of we're playing with. But at the same time, we also want to encourage people to run, people to be active, no matter what happens with redistricting. So we do have a website. We have an About Us page, some of their issues. And so, yeah, if you'd like to put up the link, we can have people go check it out, and they can see a little bit more about that.
Okay, and just say what the website is right now. So when people see us, they'll just look it up.
I believe it's unitedruraldemocrats.org.
Okay.
But I can check on that really quickly.
Okay. So, and while you're doing that, I just want to ask, you talked about events. I want to know what kind of events you're having.
Yeah, so a lot of the different events that are happening in St. Joe County and just all over where people are, we try to attend local events for local politics to spread our message and meet new people and recruit more people. So yeah, we also hold meetings with the group itself over Zoom mainly to prepare for our project and talk about what's coming next.
And we just had a large summer convention that was at the end of June, and we had speakers such as Joe Donnelly was there, and we had some senators from various other states, and I think almost every single state was represented in that, and it was a Zoom call with a lot of speakers and a lot of people, and it was fantastic to see, to get our name on the map, and so people can talk about how, and current politicians can talk about how they're trying to help rural America and how they think they can work with us. So that was our big event of the summer. Unfortunately, it was just a few weeks ago.
That's wonderful, though.
And then in terms of current events, right now we're trying to just reach out to local Democratic chapters in terms of counties and go to their events, actually. So go meet with them where they are and try to figure out what issues are most important in those counties and those local areas. So then we can take those back and say, all right, knowing this information, how can we work with you? How can we help you? How can we communicate this to the Indiana Dems at the state level? Because that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to amplify their voices and make sure that their voice is heard.
That's awesome. So, we talked earlier, and I had mentioned to you that I'm really passionate about trying to get support for the For the People Act. And I want to ask if your group is doing anything to support that. Like I explained to you, when I talk to young people and I ask them, what issues, are they interested in, I get a real sense of, kind of hopelessness, like government is broken and there's no point and everybody's corrupt. And I say to them, what if I told you there's a bill pending right now that addresses ethics among elected officials, among campaign finance rules, provides for independent redistricting and expansion of voting rights? And I do get a little response. People go, oh, and so to me, I think this is one of the most important bills out there. And this could just be so impactful on government and elections. And so I wonder what you think about that bill, whether you're supporting it, and what you're doing about it.
So I think, just quite honestly, we all are, very much in support of it, all us individual members. I don't think we have not officially released a statement saying we are officially in support of this. But I think if you look at our policy platform and you look at expanding voting rights and you look at, a lot of it kind of is similar to what is in the bill you're mentioning. So we definitely do support it. As you mentioned, giving people hope that their voice can be heard, their voice will matter, is super important. It's extremely important. And that's what this bill that the Democrats are trying to pass, that's what it does. And so we are, trying to mention that whenever possible and trying to bring it up and say, this is something that we need to focus on because this is a really big deal. Representation matters. So that's why we think this is important.
Right, especially because we are a group that focuses on representation. This bill is definitely right up our alley. And yeah, so individually, I think all of us probably support it.
Yeah.
Great. And so, when we talk about members of your group running and being active, Indiana is one of the worst states as far as gerrymandered districts, and it makes it so hard. And I wonder, what is the discussion like among you and your peers, as to how can a Democrat get elected?
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that we're trying to start with is we're just trying to go out and reach people who haven't been reached before. So if that means going door to door in communities where no politician has gone for decades, that's what it means. If it means going to restaurants and towns where no one is visiting, that's what that means. Because one of the ways that it kind of was first explained to me and I thought was really impactful is if you go out to a county that's very Republican, and you just go door to door and talk with people, try to talk with as many people as you can, you're not obviously not everyone's going to choose to vote for you. But if you can get 2 or 3% more from that county, and you can do that in a lot of counties, that adds up. And that can result in a win where it didn't look like it was possible. So our goal isn't to go out and, magically win every single red county, because obviously that's not realistic. It's to just go out and listen to people and to talk with them and make sure their voices are heard. And hopefully that they understand that, we're helping them and they trust us. And then that way, those candidates that are able to work with them also might get a little more support and a little more votes. So it's definitely something that we think is very realistic. We're not trying to flip all of a sudden, a red state, but we're also, we think that the idea that just because it's Republican, just because it's red means we should ignore it, means we shouldn't invest in it, is very wrong. And that's what has led a lot of people to be disenfranchised from politics.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And so, and I hope that in your efforts, you have some ideas about getting out the vote. We have, as it turns out, in my little number crunching, the counties that were the lowest turnout were actually urban, counties. And so, so I don't know if that's something you'll be focusing on or not. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. St. Joe County, I think, because we live in the 2nd district, and St. Joe County, which is the most urban, I think had the 2nd lowest turnout in terms of eligible voters in 2016 and in 2012. So I was just, because I really like doing these things, I just was looking at some numbers a few months ago and just looking at the statistics and like, wow, we have a lot of people who, definitely need to have their voices heard, and they're not voting, for their variety of reasons. And so, get out the vote is definitely something that we'd like to focus on.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you think about it, the gerrymandering that has happened, there's a lot of gerrymandered Republican districts, but the other ones are gerrymandered Democrat. So that also adds to the hopelessness. I mean, someone will say, that's my district. It's like, no matter what I do, a Democrat's going to win. Just like in many of the districts, it doesn't matter, a Republican's going to win. So that does, kind of weighs down on the get out the vote and the voter turnout. So that's just really an interesting phenomenon that we all have to get our heads around, that even in Democratic districts, we have to do the get out the vote, if, to get Democrats elected, but, also to get Democrats elected that are statewide or national, not just in our local districts. So, all right, great. So tell me what else you would love to talk about your organization. What else is there that I'm afraid I don't know to ask the right questions because I'm so old. So tell me what else we need to know about your great organization.
I think one of the things that makes us a little different is, I mentioned this before, and I'm going to keep saying it because I think it's really important, is meeting people where they are and going out to people to amplify their voices. So we're trying to reach out to every Democratic county leader in Indiana to understand, what kind of support do you need? What do you see happening in your community? What can we do for you? And also offering them suggestions. We mentioned Discord. Slack is another great way to have a communication between members in a party. So reaching out to them, have you heard of this as a way to communicate? What kind of organization can we help you build? So when it's possible, we're physically driving to these locations. So just recently, I drove about 50 miles south to Stark County to the Democratic meeting there, and met with the chair and all the precinct chairs who were there, and listened to their ideas and, tried to offer some suggestions and help. And it was really a great, opportunity for us to see, what do these communities need? A lot of it is sometimes funding, quite honestly. But that's one of the things that we're trying to really focus on, that we feel hasn't been done enough, is just going to people where they are, not just going to the cities. The Indiana Dems have done actually a pretty good job with this as of recently with the American Jobs and Rescue Plan Tour.
Absolutely.
They've been going all over the state. I met them there from Cass County, which is where I saw Joe Donnelly as well. But that's one of the things that we like to focus on, is going to, none of us really in United Rural Democrats are politicians. None of us have really run for office, but we think that's what makes us special. Is we're ordinary people trying to amplify the voices of other ordinary people who have unfortunately been ignored.
Right. And I think what's also worth noting is that a lot of politicians, the narrative there is that you go to the place with the most people and you campaign there and you get the places with the most people to vote for you. But like Michaell was saying, that makes rural voices never being heard. And a lot of them don't see politicians ever. They don't have people coming knocking on their door. And that's where we really focus on individual voices rather than the big cities and getting out the vote in that area, because rural voices really don't have a lot of representation at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So, well, I just can't tell you how wonderful it is to hear what you're doing. And as I told you earlier, a lot of my work is recruiting Democratic women to run for state legislative seats, especially. And so I hope that while you're out there and you're talking to people, if you hear of anyone who wants to run, please tell them to call me because I want to help them. So I envy you being out there, in the field. I'll be driving around the state too, but we need to work together on this.
And definitely, as you mentioned, having people run is so important. We just had a meeting with the St. Joe County Chair who talked about the importance of having precinct chairs, which is, highly overlooked and is something that is, pretty easy to run for and is not that tedious of a job. You're able to do it, with another job. But it's definitely something where you can run and make your voice heard. It's a stepping stone if you want to go higher. And a lot of these rural counties don't have many precinct chairs for Democrats. And so that's one of the things that we're trying to emphasize is making sure that you can recruit people to run for precinct chairs, because ordinary people can do it. And that means that ordinary people's voices are represented. Right. So we love to hear that that's the work you're doing, because that's definitely extremely important.
Yeah. Oh, and we actually are rolling out a training program for precinct committee chairs as well, because this is so important. And this is the year, it's in the election is on the primary ballot in May of 2022. There are 5,176 precincts in the state. And, probably half of those have no leadership. And this is a wonderful position to have on your local level. And this is how this is the other very important thing about making sure we have great people in those precinct committee chair positions, is that what we learned in 2020, what I learned in our work, was that there is this isolated stream of information that's coming straight from a national level, going to all, especially rural areas, from Republicans. And it was really hard to break through that. We could not get our candidates' messaging to many people. We just couldn't get in there. So again, precinct committee chair positions are the people who can do that. They can go underneath that insulated stream of information, going door to door in their neighborhood, talking to their neighbors and friends, and making sure that they are getting introduced to the Democratic candidates who are running in their districts. So again, I agree. You're so smart to see that the precinct committee chair positions are just as the most important thing that we can do right now. And the other problem is that many of the people who are in those positions don't know what they're supposed to be doing. They've not been trained well, and they show up for a caucus, but otherwise don't do much in their neighborhood. So we really need to help precinct committee chairs first get elected, and then learn how to reach everyone in their precinct. They call it a precinct committee chair because they are supposed to have a committee. So teaching precinct committee chairs how to develop a committee of volunteers in their precincts, and helping them with tools to reach people and connect everyone to candidates, and again, the other way, getting those people heard to the candidates who are running. So I couldn't agree with you more about that one. So that's wonderful that you're doing that.
Something really interesting is like, if you're supposed to have a committee, most people aren't even aware of that, let alone they don't. So if you have, 2,000 committee chairs that haven't really been filled or don't have a committee, and you can get maybe 6,000, chairs and committee in total, and you tell all those 6,000 people, I just want you to read it, whose voices haven't been heard, that's 60,000 people you can reach right there. And so that's super important is instead of trying to, tell 100 people, we need you to reach, 10,000, you can tell the opposite, you can tell 5,000, we need you to just to reach 20 people per person, which is a lot more manageable. And so organizing on a local level, just like you were saying, is we think super, super important, is getting that word out and just having local power so that people, because it's really hard for me to think that like, say Joe Biden personally hears my voice or personally is listening to me.
Right.
But it's a lot easier for me to go to my precinct chair and say, hey, this is the issue I'm worried about, because I know they'll remember me. That's their goal. That's their job. And so that's what we're trying to communicate is if you can have those local leaders who can listen to those people, it's a lot easier for everyone's voice to be heard.
Right. And then that precinct chair can say, you know what, I'm going to hook you up with your candidate who's running for your county commission or county council. So that's, that's the connection that needs to be made. So, okay. So Audrey, are you old enough to run for office yet?
I'm 18.
So, yeah, I'm not sure. How old do you have to be to run for something for, precinct committee chair even?
All I know is that president is 35. That is all I know.
No, once again, this demonstrates how much we still have to learn, because
absolutely
we're still, as I mentioned, this is I've only been in this for a few months, and so I'm still trying to. Every day I learn something new. I didn't know that precinct committee vice chairs were a thing until just like a month ago.
Yeah.
And so, or that it was supposed to be a committee. And so, as we're learning this, we're trying to do more information, learn more information, because how do I put this? We're both very involved in politics. And so if we don't know the answer to this, there's a good chance that a lot of other people don't as well.
Absolutely.
Quite frankly.
Yeah.
Especially locally. I mean, I think a lot of people our age focus on federal politics more than state and local ones. And I think what's the most important is really local politics.
Yeah.
I agree. And so, and this again. So
you can also be like a township trustee or things. Yeah.
That's right. Or a township trustee board member that provides very important oversight over a fairly unregulated, position. So don't get me started.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, okay. So we're almost out of time. So thank you again for being here. So tell us again how people can reach you and online, and your emails, whatever you want to share, your handle.
So there is as I mentioned, our website, unitedruraldemocrats.org.
Great.
If you go there, as do all websites, they have, we have a home, we have an about us, we have our state plans, we have a way to donate, and we have a volunteer. So if you click on that volunteer, it'll take you to a form where you can put your name, your contact information, and maybe why you're interested about hearing about us. And, we'll get back to you and we'll connect with you. We also have our Twitter handle. Twitter handle, I can't talk, is at rural_united. So if you go there, you can also learn more about us. You can DM us through there and, get involved. And if you respond to one of our tweets, we're very good with responding back, actually. So if all you want to do is just respond and say, hey, I'm interested in learning more about getting involved, we'll respond back. So that's at rural_united. Or you can visit our website, which is unitedruraldemocrats.org, any one of those things. And we'd love to even just listen to what's important to you. Honestly, if you just love to I just like to talk with you about something that's important to me. I don't think, I'm being heard in my local political level. That's great. We'd love to have you.
For sure.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you again for coming and doing this interview with me. I think this is really exciting work that you're doing, and I hope we can all work together. It's great that you're reaching out, I think, to Democratic parties. There's also a bazillion Democratic clubs out there. And so I find that to be such an interesting phenomenon, that there's the Democratic Party, and then there'll be, a Democratic club for a city, or for another one for the county, and there'll be a progressive Democrats group. So, and it is, kind of a pipe dream, but it sure would be nice if those could all kind of, come together a little bit more. That would be nice. So, all right, great. Well, what you're doing is wonderful. I'm so excited to meet both of you, and I will definitely be keeping an eye on your work. And hopefully we can do some more. Talking and get updates as you progress in your goals.
And
Absolutely.
thank you so much for all the work you do. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, and thank you so much for having us
Yeah, we
today.
appreciate that.
Absolutely. All right, great. Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.